Welcome to the Women's Football Show here on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Kerry Pollock, Cheryl Smith and Alison McConnell are here with me. Let's have a look at the results from the weekend. It finished Celtic 0, Rangers 1, Hibs 2, Glasgow City 2, Motherwell 0, Hearts 6, Thistle 0, Montrose 1, Dundee United 0, Aberdeen 5, Spartans 2 and Queen's Park 0. Alison, give us your take on the weekend as we're closing into the end of the season.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? I think the results really, I've just framed it as a three-way fight now for the title. I think that meeting at Meadowbank was where all eyes were on, and the draw really played into Rangers' hands before they went and took on Celtic. I think Hibs just need 4 points from the last two games, but they've unquestionably got the toughest run in of the top three, so they have to host Celtic on Wednesday night, and then they have to go to Ibrox on the final day, and potentially they could be going to Ibrox needing a point against a Rangers side who have got a vastly superior goal difference, and I think then it could obviously come down to a real test of nerves and bottle just across this finale. But I think however it plays out, I think you'd have to say Hibs have punched above their weight, and I think there's a danger that sounds incredibly patronising at this point in the season, given where they are and what they've done. But I think it's been an impeccable campaign for them, given the fact that they got to the League Cup final too. They're in the mix going into this last few days of the title window, way more than anyone else would have expected. I think Glasgow City, Rangers, the other two, both tied on points. Rangers having obviously the far better goal difference of out of any of them. I think it's a really intriguing fight now to the finish. I think this is what the league wants. I think every season it's been live going into the final game, and it's set for another showdown again. I think if to put a gun to my head and say who do you think is going to go and win it now, I have a sneaky feeling that Rangers might go and just get over the line now.
Ah, okay. Cheryl, for you, photo finish, will Hibs stay out in front?
Yeah, before we get to that, can I just say that obviously we were expecting to be in Mauritius this week because we'd taken the show on the road. We've already done the Hilton and Hampden, and now we're in Motherwell, which is back fine as well. But yeah, no,
is this on stilts? Is this one of the over water studios?
We'll green screen it, don't worry.
It's like Alison says, it's the finish to the season that we all want. And hopefully if it goes down to that final day, I think that's also what we all want, and have the drama, especially if it's between, two different grounds and you're watching to see what the score is here and goal difference there, and it just makes it for a great ending to what's been a really good season as well.
Well, Rangers got themselves back in it with that 1-0 win over Celtic. Kirsty Hibbett was the difference maker. Joe Potter says, Alison, that there was a lot of pressure for her side going into that game. Are Rangers a team that you feel can deal with those sort of conditions?
I think there's actually been question marks over how they deal with pressure at points this season. I think she's right. I think knowing that there had been a share of the points at Meadowbank before they kicked off, and they knew that they could go level with City and peg it back a bit, I think it does add a layer of pressure onto the game. And I think they did cope with it. I think they could have won by a wider margin against Celtic. I think they were fairly dominant within the game. But I think there has been at points this season, and I'm thinking back to recent defeats to Hibs, to Glasgow City, at Ibrox, I think pretty insipid performances from Rangers just when the pressure is on, and I think it has lent itself to question the mentality within the squad. I think they have answered that, in some way answered it yesterday, but I think you'll see to what extent over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Well,
Interesting, that Joe Potter said yesterday after the game about knowing the score beforehand, and that they couldn't shy away from it because you obviously can't control what the players see before they walk into the building. It was 4 hours before, so I thought it was interesting that it was included in like our build up to the game and using it as we now know what we need to go and do. I think sometimes maybe managers might kind of pretend that they don't see these things, or they don't check tables and results and things like that, but it's refreshing to hear her say, no, we can't shy away from it. It was there and we had to go and do the business, and they did.
That would have tested their mentality as well, though, eh?
Yeah, I think it would add an extra layer onto it, because it's an extra sort of pressure knowing what you need to go and do. But I think maybe also gives you a bit of clarity, and you know that they're not playing at the same time, so I don't know, maybe it's not in their mind then when they're on the pitch what's happening elsewhere. They already know, and they know what they have to go out and do.
Very true. Well, more news coming out of Rangers this week is that Jane Ross has announced that she will retire at the end of the season, and here's what her manager had to say.
Oh, she's been exceptional. I think when you speak about women's football in Scotland, she's one of the few names that jump out to you immediately. She's had such an exceptional career. You look at some of the clubs that she's played for. You don't play for those clubs if you're not an exceptional player.
Soak it up next to my leg.
Just to go over a few of her accolades then, Alison. 12 trophies win her time at Glasgow City, 100 goals for Man City, successful spells with Swedish side Vittsjö GIK, plus Man City, West Ham and Man United, over 150 caps for Scotland, 62 goals in her time. For Rangers, she dealt with a nasty knee injury that kept her out for a total of 518 days. She came back in 2023, 13 goals in 23 appearances last season. That's nothing to be shy about, is it?
That was almost as long as her career then.
Just thought I'd get it all in there.
Fantastic career. I think she played at the really highest level. I always found her quite personable to speak to, comes across as quite a humble player. Good luck to her. I think that knee injury coming just as it did had a really difficult effect on her across recent seasons. But yeah, I think you just wish her luck. I knew she was coming out of contract. I'd actually asked her after the semi-final if there was any movement in contract talks, and sometimes you just get a feel by the way that someone evades a question that I wasn't overly surprised when the news came out on Sunday morning that she decided to call time on it. But I think, yeah, fantastic career when you look back at it, and when you read the accolades like that, it's just a huge catalogue of success.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to Celtic then, Elena Sadiku certainly believes that she's the one to take Celtic forward into a state of dominance next season.
If I'm the right person, 100% yes. Because I know my standards, I know my mindset, and unfortunately, I think people are not used to how I want things to be, and that needs to change.
Cheryl, will Elena Sadiku admit that this just isn't good enough from a Celtic side this season that she's had under her wings?
Yeah, I mean, I think she has admitted it, that it's not good enough. Definitely yesterday, she didn't shy away from saying that what's happened this season cannot happen again. To be fair to them, they've never been in a position where they are being chased. So it's, I think, a very different mindset when you're the team that's the champions and there's a target on your back and everyone's hunting you down. But yeah, I think she has fronted up, and she said yesterday, that she doesn't want any of the blame to go on to the players, and you can say what you want about her and give her all the flack, which is effectively what is happening because she is the face of the team as the manager. But next season, if she's there definitely needs to be improvements. I just don't know how they go about it. There's a lot of things that need to come together at Celtic to make that happen and for it to be successful, longevity as well.
Will she be there next season, Alison?
I think it'll be her decision whether she's there next season or not. I think at this moment in time she has enough credit in the bank. I think she is the first woman to deliver a title, first manager to deliver a title to this team, the first manager to take them into the group stages of the Champions League. So I think she will find that there is some leeway this season on the back of that, although it's a really interesting conversation to have, because if you were to compare the same kind of pressures at Celtic on the women's side with the men's side, it's inarguable that a men's manager would survive it. They just wouldn't. It would be seen as being intolerable. The fact that they are pretty much in a fight to get fourth place. They're tying at the minute with a Hearts side whose budget would dwarf, Celtic's budget would dwarf that of Hearts. And I think they've been shown up by Hibs and what they've done this season. So I think there is a conversation, perhaps a different kind of conversation about that. But ultimately, I would think that yes, I do think if she leaves, I think it will be on her own volition. I don't think she will be sacked by the club because of what she's already achieved. And that's maybe just a reflection of the different pressures and standards that exist between the men's and the women's game, and maybe the lack of scrutiny and microscopic scrutiny that we see in the men's game at the minute. It just isn't there in the women's game, and I think that maybe gives a bit more breathing space. I do think, though, she starts next season under pressure before a ball is kicked, if that makes sense, because you need to see progress. You need to say this season has been an aberration and that this is a team that are capable of going and challenging for the title. And I think when you look at the top three teams this season and you look at the top three teams across recent campaigns, there are points where I think it's very difficult to pick a line between them. I think that there have been real similarities in terms of qualities, in terms of consistency. And I think even if you don't win the league, there can be forgiveness there, because you can see that, for example, last season Rangers lost a league title on goal difference. You know, there's really very, very little between the teams. Going back the season again, you know, Glasgow City winning it with the last kick of the ball. I think you can afford managers not winning a league when you see how tight it is and how the race has been run. But I think when you look at the distance between Celtic now and Hibs at the top of the league, I think you would have to say it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be a hard decision. I was actually just kind of stunned by her response to that, and not because, you know, she's obviously a very strong character and she takes a lot on in and around the club, but I don't really know why, for her own career progression, why she would remain at Celtic. She's, as she says openly, she's already achieved sort of the pinnacle of what she's going to achieve there. I suppose like defending the title would be another accolade. The problem that Celtic have got now is that Hibs and Hearts are not going to stop progressing. They're going to keep moving from where they are, as are Rangers and Glasgow City. So she's got a problem there if she doesn't get the backing from the club that she thinks matches her ambitions. You know, she said yesterday, and she said it previously to you, that the players that she has brought in and that she has signed are the ones that are the standouts in what has been a very poor season. So she obviously backs herself in terms of the players and our coaching ability. But there needs to be more than that. There has to be all these, you know, everyone has to be on the same page and bring it all together.
I think it seems very disjointed this season.
Yeah.
I think when you look at...
she's isolated, actually.
Yeah, and in terms of...
Just, you know, she said a few weeks ago she came in as a coach, she's now the manager. So she's obviously dealing with a lot of things that wasn't on our list when she first came into the job.
Is she backed by the board?
I think when you look at traditionally the top three across recent seasons, if you're talking about Celtic and Rangers and Glasgow City, Celtic are the third resourced club in that mix. I still think they should be doing better than what they have this season, but I think when you look at losing someone like Caitlin Hayes mid-season, and you would have to go back and say at that point the title was very much within Celtic's grasp. They were 6 points behind with 2 games in hand. They won both of those games in hand to go level at the top of the table, and it was the first time that they'd actually been in that kind of company all season. They sold Caitlin Hayes. Now, Caitlin Hayes would be the most high-profile player at the club. She became the face almost of the women's team. I think also she offered Celtic a versatility in games when they needed a goal. What they done was they took Caitlin Hayes out of centre defence and they put her up front for the last 10-15 minutes of games, and it worked to great effect at points. If you look back, some really big goals at key points of the campaign, particularly last season when they won the league. So not only did they miss her at the heart of defence, and when you look back and you look at some of the cheap goals that Celtic have conceded in the run-in, mistakes that have been made to gift teams goals, I think you feel the loss of her influence hugely. Elena Sadiku said to us in a press conference shortly after that she had a replacement lined up. She had spoken and identified a replacement, and it didn't get over the line. Now, that was her only comment on it. She wouldn't elaborate on the fact it hadn't been funded, but quite clearly it falls down when it comes to finances. So I think at the minute you would have to say it's a women's team that is backed on paper, but I don't think it's backed to the tune that she would want it to be, and I think that was also a complaint of Fran Alonso's before her.
We know how Scottish football works. You cannot be a Celtic manager that can't beat Rangers, and you cannot be a Celtic manager that lives in past glories. It just doesn't work. So.
And that be forgiven for what she achieved last season, or obviously your point that you just made there, you have to live in the now. It's a new season.
I can see what Alison's saying, that she's got credit in the bank because of what she achieved, and what she achieved was huge because it was the first time they'd ever won the title and obviously got into the Champions League, so that's not to be diminished. Her achievement is massive, and she'll be in the history books of Celtic forever. But this is a new season, and next season is a new season. I don't know how long you can keep referring back to something that's gone before, because Celtic is a club that you need to keep winning. Men, women, whatever. You need to keep winning year on year and bringing in trophies.
Yeah, that's the game we're in. Before we finish up then, Alison thinks Rangers are going to steal it in the end. Cheryl, are you in the same boat?
I mean, yeah, I've thought for a few weeks now that Rangers would take it. I thought they had a slight wobble the last couple of games.
Yeah.
They've got back on track now. Obviously, the goal difference is to their benefit, and the game at Ibrox also to their benefit. In the last game, obviously, we've got a midweek card before that, but I would be surprised if they didn't win it.
Let's just remind ourselves of what the league table looks like before we finish up. Hibs are at the top, they're on 71 points. Trailing not too far behind them are Rangers in second. Glasgow City on the same amount of points as Rangers. Celtic trailing on 59. Hearts in fifth, and then Motherwell are sixth. On behalf of myself, Alison and Cheryl, we'll be back next week with more action to look forward to. Thanks for watching.